Are your hands more dry than usual? Healing Hands natural oils and scrub can help. Throughout the pandemic, we've had to excessively wash our hands and sanitize, especially teachers and medical professionals. Healing Hands natural scrub rejuvenates and rehydrates one's dried out hands and feet from a day's work. So click on the link in the bio and purchase your favorite teacher, medical professional, student, or just your favorite person, their very own.
Welcome to the Core 366 podcast, where we're pushing you daily to get back to the basics, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I am your host, Apostle Sophia M. Johnson.
I am a wife.
I am a wife in waiting.
I am a wife.
I am a wife in waiting.
I am a wife.
I am a wife in waiting.
I am a wife.
I am a wife in waiting.
I am a wife.
Good morning. Thank you guys for joining us again. We have a very special guest that has previously been with us, and I'm super excited to have her again. We have Mrs. Audria Bailey, and y'all, we not going to play around with y'all today. We're going to jump right into the questions. You guys already know who she is, and if you don't, go back and listen to the replay from when she came, and we spoke about, proper placement. That was the title of the episode that she did with me, which proper placement. And I'm so excited to have her again. Hey,
Hey, everybody. How are you doing this morning?
I'm so super excited to have you. We didn't get to all the questions last time, and so I said I'm going to ask her some questions that we didn't get to. And so the very first one I want to ask you is, did you grow up in a two-parent household? And the reason why I ask this is because when you grow up in a single-parent household, you glean different things. But if you grow up in a two-parent household, that's, of course, totally different. So I just wanted to ask you, did you grow up in a two-parent household? And then what did you get from that you have brought into your marriage?
So, in the beginning, I grew up in a two-parent household until, of course, I was younger, but my parents divorced when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I kind of have a vague remembrance of my mom. I know it's different pieces of, my mom, serving my husband and everything like that. But the rest of my leading to my middle school, or the latter part of my elementary years into my middle school and high school, college years, I just saw my mom in the single parent role. Of course, I still maintain a relationship with my father. But like I said, I do remember vaguely some instances of where I would see my mom serving her husband, my father. And other than that, it was, of course, it's a blur because I'm like 4.5, 5 years old. So I mainly saw just my mom being a single parent. And I gleaned. I know a lot of people say, okay, they get like negative aspects from that, from a divorce, being a child of divorced parents. I saw it as me seeing, okay, well, that's not what I want to happen to my marriage, if that makes sense. So I did see my mom's strength. So I think I gleaned her strength of pushing through and persevering. And still doing what she needs to do to raise her kids and, making sure that we were good. So I'd say I gleaned her strength from that. And then I also gleaned like, okay, how you see something, it's like, okay, well, I don't want that to happen to my marriage. So I'm going to make sure I work at it or, do whatever I need to do to make sure I maintain my marriage, because I don't want my kids to experience what I experienced. Not saying it wasn't a negative aspect. Of course, you feel some type of way, growing up, you feel like, okay, you see friends or classmates with two-parent households, like, okay, you have the thought of what if my parents would have, stayed together, and, had those moments of thinking, okay, would my life turned out different, or, would it have stayed the same? Like, have those thoughts or whatnot. But like I said, I still maintain a relationship with my father, which I'm grateful for. I know some people is different, they may have an estranged relationship with their father or whatever, but I am grateful for that. So I'd say I gleaned her strength, and I've also I kind of learned from it. So, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that my marriage doesn't end up that way.
Yeah, I definitely understand, because I grew up in a single parent household as well. My dad, like, he would come get me and different stuff like that. He was married. Well, he ended up getting married when I was, like, I think in like middle school. And so I got to see them, but I didn't live with them. So I only got to see, from a single parent aspect. And the same, I was like, okay, I don't want my kids to, have to not be without their father. Like, I don't want that for my kids. And so, but my mom, again, was a strong lady. And like, for her to raise a girl and a boy on her own up until she passed away was good. And then I went from that single parent household to being in another single parent. Like, I was like, Lord. But it was okay, because even with my aunt, even though she was sick, but she had a lot of strength and she didn't play. And so I was like, okay, my kids, they not going to be able to get away with nothing, because I'm not going to go for that either. I'm not going to go for all this little crazy stuff that these kids be trying to do. And so, but in the households that I did get to be around that were married couples, I sort of kind of pulled a little bit from that, like the funny stuff, the having fun together, and trying to handle conflict in the right way. I ain't gonna say I did that in the beginning, but but that's what I wanted, was that healthy relationship with my spouse. And so we got there. We didn't start off there.
Listen. Right. It's I would definitely say that, of course, I did not. I didn't start off like, I've definitely had my moments. I still have my moments. And I think it's okay for everyone to be real and think that, okay, or be realistic. Like, okay, you're not going to be perfect immediately. You're going to have those rough moments, but you have a goal in mind, and you just got to do what you got to do to get to that goal.
Exactly. Yes. And so I wanted to go into a scripture, because that crossed my mind before we even got on. I was like, okay. I was like, That's okay. I don't know. Like, let's talk about that. A lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say different things. And so this is coming from Ephesians 5, verse 33. And I'm going to read the whole thing, but we're specifically looking at the part where it speaks about the wife. It says, nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverenced her husband. And so I had a lot of people, and so the reverence basically is respect, right? And I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, oh no, he gotta earn my respect. Like, if he don't do what I feel like he should be doing, I'm not gonna respect him, and all that stuff like that. And so and I've looked at people sideways, like, it doesn't say if he does what you want him to do. It doesn't say if things go your way. It just says see to it. It says see that you reverence your husband, and then they have her husband, like it's italicized in the King James version. And so that really is like your husband, not no one else's husband, but your husband. And so what's your take on that? Because a lot of people are like, oh well, if he does this and if he does that, and I'm like, but what if he says I'll love her if she then we got a problem, because now you mad.
Right. And I totally agree with you. Like I said, we weren't perfect when we first started out. I've had my moments of that, of like, if I'm upset and I'm like, oh, I don't, you have those moments, you have to catch yourself like, wait, you can't do that. So like you said, it's just like them saying, okay, well, because you didn't do XYZ, I'm not going to cherish you. I'm not going to love you. And so I think I look at that as this. I look at this like, okay, this is what God is telling us to do. Like, we have to be obedient and respecting our husbands. It's like a commandment for your marriage, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's like, like he's telling like our husbands to love us as excuse me, mm-hmm. as his very own self. I think I was looking at different. I like to bounce around different translations, so I can
go ahead, read it.
So, New Living says, so again, I say each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. And so it's like, so just like how God told our husbands to love us as they love themselves. Okay, let's turn it for us. We must respect our husbands as we respect ourselves. And so it's like, the saying, okay, well, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Yes. So you got to do the same thing. So I think in those aspects as wives, I know we have those moments of like, feel like, oh no, you're not going to do this, and you expect me to do X, Y, Z. No, mm-hmm. Okay, you just be mature. It's hard. It's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. Even if you feel like you are not in the wrong or whatever, but you still, I think this is in a moment, and this is what I had to learn, of allowing God to fight our battles. Because I know sometimes as wives, and I could be the only one, but sometimes you may feel like, no, you're not going to do this, or I'm not going to respect you because you did X, Y, Z. But God's like, no, you be obedient, respect him. Even if you've done wrong or you weren't in the wrong, you still respect him and allow God to handle whatever, Yes. And so, and most of the time it has happened. You're like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. It'd be like, it could be like a message, or it could be like a video or something, and you'd be like, oh, I see, and so it kind of comes full circle. But just like we expect them to love us, they expect respect. That is their love, if that makes sense. That's us loving them, is by respecting them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I struggle with that as well in the beginning, because see, in one, I didn't even know that scripture existed, mm-hmm. Because there was, how like growing up in church, I grew up in church, and so there was just certain things that they read and they said, mm-hmm. and because I didn't really know that. Yeah, I know people gonna be like, "Oh my God, she was a heathen." No, there was just certain things that I did not know. Like, mm-hmm. I had a Bible, but I didn't read it. I was a kid, and so I didn't really know. And so, there were certain things that I just didn't know. And so that's like one of those godly principles. And when you do know, you're like, "Oh, it's that thing where it says, when you know better, you do better."
Right.
And then look, a lot of people say, instead of them saying, "Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you," they be like, "Do unto others as they do unto you." And I be like, That is my scripture. That is not it.
Right.
And so the Lord had to get me there too, and so the reason why I say it to people, I'm like, no, it's not about whether or not he does everything right and he gets everything right and he does what you want him to do. It's about the fact that the Lord is saying, respect him point blank in a period, simply because he is your husband. And just again, you said how you respect, you said say it the same way, respect your husband as you respect yourself. So if you're not respecting yourself, then you probably won't respect your husband. But that still doesn't it doesn't mean that you don't respect him, because at the end of the day, you respect him. And if he's not loving you how the Lord is telling him to love you, the Lord will deal with him. Like you said, the Lord will deal. And the Lord would deal with us, because the Lord has shown me moments where I thought that I was respecting my husband and I wasn't. Mm-hmm. Like having conversations about him to other people instead of going to the Lord in prayer.
Yes. And I think that'll be a great example even for just the wives in waiting, for when you are in that, because I know maybe used to talking to your friends about your dating relationship and your boyfriends, and talking to your whoever about your problems, and then say if they still remain single, and now you're married and you're continuing the same thing, or where you're talking to your friends about, or your single friends about issues in your marriage, they can give you bad advice because either one, they don't know how to give wifely advice because they're not married. Two, they could be salty because they want your life, and so they're just like, well, I don't care if your marriage fails or not, stuff like that. And so even with your family members, because say you voice those things to whoever, they're still holding on to it, and you and your husband have moved on from it,
Yes.
but they still holding on to what you told them. And so I just say, just use wisdom in that, and just making sure that, you have those either godly wives around you, or godly couples that y'all can talk to, or just talk to God, and just because you can't go wrong with that. You're definitely going to get the right advice, or he'll lead you to who to talk to. So yeah, definitely use wisdom on that and who you share your conflict with.
Yes, exactly. And so when the Lord did that, I had to go. I was like, oh, Lord, blot it out. Don't let them remember. Like, blot that thing. Because I didn't even know that I was being disrespectful in that aspect. I was like, oh, Lord, I uncovered him. Okay, so let's think about that. Oh, okay. I uncovered him. And I'm supposed to cover him. And so, and he covered me. And so, because I've thought about things like that before, like when things go, like, do they talk to their friends about it? Like, are we all over here uncovering each other? Not saying that they should hide anything, but if we are out here just telling everything to other people, and have to pray and ask God, okay, who can I share this with? Because that's been something I had to do, because I used to just be like, oh, that's my friend. And later on, they weren't really my friend. So that's a whole other.
That's why you got to use wisdom. You got to use wisdom. Because suppose you're sharing like that. Yeah, that could backfire. Like suppose you share something that's like you say, you're uncovering your husband. It's like, they can do whatever they want to with that information,
Yes.
Yeah, just please use wisdom with that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And so so a lot of people may not understand what we're saying when we say cover. That means that we go to God in prayer. Like we are praying on their behalf, and we're interceding for them. They're interceding for us. And when we don't go that route first, because it says seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all of its right. Like we should be seeking the Father first before we go and say anything to anybody. So that's what I mean when I say cover him, because if we do that first, because I wasn't doing that first, but once you do that first, you're like, oh wait, okay, no, I can't talk to anybody about this. This is something that I need to like stay with the Lord on, or the Lord may be like, okay, here's an older lady, or here's somebody that you can go and talk to, and you don't have to worry about this getting out to anybody. And so once I learned that, I was like, okay, I have to go to God first. And have you ever like struggled in the area? Like, well, I guess in the beginning, I think we all have, because we're still new to it. We're trying to figure it out, especially if we grew up in a single parent household. We don't know how to handle those conflicts. So have you ever had moments where you may have said something to a friend, and then later on you're like, ooh.
Yeah, I think either friend or family member, I can't remember, and and it could have been small. Yes, definitely early stages of my marriage, and I think that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, we moved on from this. Like I've moved on from this. We talked about it, whatever. But this person is still, how they'll be like, oh, so such, or they'll try to bring it up. So it could be good or bad depending on how you deal with conflict. Say you moved on, forgiving your husband or whatever. It could have been something small, but they'll bring it up like, oh, but what about this? So it almost could be like it's almost like the enemy. Like you moved on and said, oh, but what about this? Oh, but you remember XYZ, so it's, I definitely would just say, okay, yeah, I probably shouldn't have shared that. Or like, okay, you know what? Let me just only talk to God, Holy Spirit, or just allow him to just tell me, or let me pray first before I because even when you're upset, you got to catch yourself before, when you're in a heat, you need to take your time to breathe, calm down first, vent to God, and then hear God on who you need to talk to. Because if we immediately call or text someone while we're upset, then we're not thinking logically. Like we're not thinking smart when we're upset and fuming, and so we just go to text like, guess what he did, or whatever. We're not thinking about, okay, how is this going to play out after the fact?
The consequences.
The consequences. Like, should I have said something to this person? Like, we got to use wisdom.
Look, and now you being tormented in your mind because you like,
right, exactly. Right.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely. And the reason why we're sharing it, like for wives and wives in waiting, but for the wives in waiting, this is so that you're like, okay, I'm waiting and I'm preparing for my spouse, and I know how to deal with any conflict we may have. I need to go straight to God first instead of, because the first thing, I don't know if it's a female thing, and it could be, but the first thing that we want to do most of the time is pick up the phone, call our girlfriend, and go off about what he did, not realizing that she may not have, if she's not even in a relationship with God, she's not going to give you no godly counsel anyway.
She's not, especially, as I'm saying, especially whatever you've done while you were dating, you can't do that while you're married. You can't like say, okay, you did that when you had a boyfriend, and you say, girl, guess what he did? Blah, 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 blah. Like, you can't do that. Exactly. Like I said, I think that's our go-to, but you gotta, or there may have been our default settings when we're single, but you gotta change your mindset on that. Once you get married, it's like, okay, wait, I can't, just like how we'll say, okay, well, you can't go out like you used to when you're dating, you're married now, like you got kids, like you gotta, you can't just like go out and, just do the things that you used to do. Like, you gotta change your whole mindset when you're getting married. Like, yeah, you just can't do the same things, because they're not gonna give you the right advice, especially if they're still single.
Yeah, because you definitely just go to the Lord about everything.
Just go to the Lord in prayer. Like, I know it may sound cliche, but just literally breathe, take a moment, and just look to God as like your friend, your best friend, in that moment, and say, God, you know what he did, blah, blah, blah. And that way he'll convict you, even with stuff you point stuff on him. He'll be like, yeah, but you did this.
And do you remember rolling your left eye? And then you smacking your lips.
Right. And you like, but I wasn't talking about me. I was talking about you.
Because I'm telling you, because the Lord is gonna run that thing back.
He's gonna run it back.
God, because he's like, listen, I know you're coming to me about this, but let's work on you, because then if I can work on you and deal with the things that's triggering you when it happens, instead of you like going off on a person, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, let me go pray for them.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, even with just people, period.
That's what people, period. You gotta push through that. I gotta go apologize.
Yeah, because the Lord is like, I know you bringing this up, but clearly there was some things that you could have did right too. As soon as they brought it to you, because I was listening to this room on Clubhouse the other day, and she was speaking about how the husband was frustrated with his day, and the wife called and said, "Where are you?" And he was like, "I can't help that." He started going off instead of breathing first and then responding to her. And once he got off the phone, he was walking back to where he was going, because he had to walk to one area because his phone wouldn't work in the other area. But as he was walking back to the area he was going to, he was like, oh man, that didn't even have nothing to do with her. My frustration in that moment had nothing to do with her. and he had to call her back and apologize and come up with a resolution for what it was that she called him about. And so that happens, but I've tried my best to decompress from my day. So that I don't do that, because I remember there was a time where I was yelling at everybody in the house, and I was like, and I didn't like it, because I was like, why am I frustrated? Why am I mad? Why am I upset? And it was because I wasn't taking the time to just breathe,
right. Transition from your day to your next, or transition from one role to the next role.
Yes. And that could be detrimental if you don't do that, like for your marriage, and it could be for your children, because now they're like, oh well, I didn't even do nothing, and mom is going off on me. And so it's just good to take that moment to do like Audrey said, and just breathe. Breathe. Because once you do that, it's like every thought that you had just of craziness just goes away, and it's like, okay, all right, baby, what did you need? Right. Okay. All right.
And see, mine is sort of different, because of course most times my husband works from home, and then other times he'll me going to the office or whatever. And so I had to make sure I tried to not immediately bog him down with stuff after he's done with his work day, because sometimes we like come in the door, oh, XYZ, guess what, blah, blah, or this is what the kids did, or this is what the kids need, blah blah. Like, try allowing your spouse, like whatever your situation is, if you're working from home or whatever it is, just making sure you're allowing your spouse to kind of decompress too from their day, and also give them grace in that area. So say if they do come home and like, just give me a moment, say they do come home going off on you or whatever because of their day, because they didn't have time to decompress, give them grace in that area. Okay, oh, he must have had a hard day, he must have had a busy day, or whatever the case is. And then of course, even though we have, because I know I'm able to be like, okay, well, I'm stressed out from these kids. Even I still had to decompress from my day too, just be like, okay, let's breathe. Let's give each other grace.
Exactly. And I think that's what we don't give each other. I think that's what we don't give each other enough of, is grace.
Right.
Grace, like to make the mistake and then to fix the mistake. Yeah. And so we get upset and we start going off, and it just turns into a big mess when we don't give each other grace. And I had to learn that too. Yeah, like, okay, because at first I was like, okay, he's at work, and but and the Lord is like, no, Sophia, like, you need to give that man a minute to get his life together.
Right, because they deal with co-workers. Yeah, they deal with co-workers. They deal with people they work with. Yeah, they deal with a lot too. So we just
because they give it to us when we, whether we think they do or not. I've noticed that a lot of men give their wives a lot of grace when it comes to the us being frustrated. Like, okay, they got to deal with we deal with some things that they don't have to deal with, right? And so in those moments that they don't want to kick us out the house because of that one thing, look, we can give them a little grace after work.
We got to give them grace. We got to give them grace for sure. We got to.
Look, because I know they probably be like,
really?
You really had to give her that every month?
Right.
Exactly. She be tripping.
Exactly.
But I love what you said, grace, because a lot of people don't do it. And even with our last conversation, there was some stuff that you said that I have been using, some tools that you gave that I've been using. I was okay, Lord, thank you. Look, thank you.
Right.
For making me AJ's wife.
Right. And I think even what you said about looking at him in a different, I think you're saying looking at him in a different perspective.
Yeah,
Or
get unfamiliar.
Getting unfamiliar. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So that's been helping too.
because I still have to do that every now and then. I'll be like, oh, and the Lord's like, I'm familiar, and I'm like, oh, okay. Because even with, I had an event yesterday, and prior to yesterday, I was telling my husband, I said, okay, so yeah, I'm doing this pop-up event, and the last one I did, he really wasn't like feeling it. He was like, I don't want you, and I had already signed up, and I was like, babe, but this time I was like, yeah, I want to do this pop-up event, and he was excited, and he was like, make sure you take shirts and and I was sitting there like, because at first I was like, he ain't gonna want me to do it. Here I go again. He ain't gonna want me to do it. And the Lord was like, you don't know what he's gonna want. So I'm gonna need you to just sit back and just tell him about it and then go from there. And so I told him about it, and he was, oh yeah, make sure. And I was like, oh my God, he's more excited than I am. And it really, with him, and he started saying, no, take everything that's on your website, because I was only going to take 2 different things with me. And he was like, no, take everything on your website, so that way people can see that you don't just do these 2 things, but you do other stuff on top of that. And he was right, because people was like, oh my God, you do it all. I was like, yeah, the Lord has given me the ability to do all these things with my hands.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Look, I ain't gonna do it to you, Audrey. I'm sorry. But all of these things with my hands, and it just really blessed me, because I was like, he always pays attention to the whole family, but sometimes it shocks me a little bit that he pays attention to every single detail. And I think that's just what God has given them, because we spoke about last time, like the master's plan. He's given the husband the master's plan, and so whenever there's things that I'm not supposed to do, he's gonna be like, but then there's something that the Lord may want me to do to get myself out there, he'll be like, yeah, and you should take this, and then you should tell them this. And so that
so
really, listen, that blessed me so good.
That's so good. Even when you were saying how you immediately thought that, okay, he's not gonna go along with it, and God was like, God already dealt with him, like, no, support your wife on this, and tell her to do this. Like, we don't know how God talks to our husbands, and we just gotta be obedient and trust, because sometimes, like you said, we can just automatically assume just from how they acted the last time, then it's like, okay, well, they're not going to act like this then. But God's like already dealt with them, like I said, because he cares for us, he cares about us too. So it's just like, okay, God saw how you felt during that time when he didn't really support as much as you wanted him to, and so he probably dealt with him then. It's okay, no, support your wife, and I want you to tell her to do this, and so he was able to speak to you and give you wisdom and clarity. So I believe that was like the Holy Spirit talking through your husband to give you that insight, because like you said, you was only going to take a few items, and so by you the Holy Spirit talking to your husband, he was able to give you insight and say, okay, well, no, take everything to your website. So people were like, wow, you did all this. So it's like, he helped shine that light on you even more, from that. So so it's a lot in there. That's good.
Yeah, and it really blessed me, because I did get to talk about, because even though you can't actually put your coaching and consulting on display, but it gave me an opportunity when this one lady, and then because the Lord told me, because I was praying, I said, okay, Lord, what shirt am I going to wear? And I know y'all like, what? Because even in that, you have to ask the Lord, like, what am I going to wear?
Yeah.
Even going on a date with your husband, Lord, what should I wear?
Listen, that's good. Like, ask him that stuff. He would literally give you the insight of what to do. Like, it's bananas. I think that's even that. Don't limit God on what you talk to him about, what you ask him about. It's like he cares about the little stuff. He cares about the small detail. Yeah, that's good.
Exactly. And so, I made the shirt, and then it was a conversation piece, because that's the whole point of this particular shirt, because the ask me about it, it's a conversation piece.
Right.
And so
Right.
it said, Faith, ask me about it.
Mhm.
And the lady said, okay, well, I'm asking you about it.
That's good.
And I was like, okay, cool. And it ended up giving me an opportunity to talk to her about the wives in waiting coaching and consulting that I do. And I was like, wow, God, you had my husband. Okay.
You know what
It
he's
all
doing.
worked out. And I was like, wow, that really, it really made me smile. Cause I was like, okay, God, like, I know he supported me, but he, like, this right here this really did something for me. And it was all about, and then I used to struggle just a little bit with just taking his advice when it came to the business. Cause I was like, oh, I'm doing this. But the Lord was like, but, he be dealing with all types of money and different stuff on his job. He got the wisdom to help you in the business. And I had to learn how to go to him. And sometimes I still have a little attitude. Let's just be real. I try not to, y'all. But the Lord be dealing with me like, hey, reel it back in. You're tripping.
Yeah.
Really,
I think
really back in.
that goes back to just being open and saying you don't know what God is telling your spouse. So even if they're not in the same, if they're not doing the same thing you're doing, and you can be like, oh, you don't know anything about what I'm doing. You don't know. God can like show them something from their perspective, and they can like be like, wow, that's great. And sometimes I may feel like that too. If my husband's doing something or if he's asking something, initially I may be like, I don't know what, how can I, have advice for that? So I'm not really sure. But then God will show me something. I'm like, oh, well, maybe you should do this. Or, this would be good if you do that. And you'd be like, wow, I didn't think about it like that. So it's just like, you never know how God talks to your spouse or what he may tell them, for your business or whatever.
Yeah, so it's good to be open to any advice they may have, even if it doesn't make sense to you. Take the advice that he just gave back to the Lord. Let's go back to the Lord with it,
right?
So and that you can get the same understanding,
right?
Yes, like you may not get the same understanding, but God will break it down for you in the way that you can understand it.
Right? Exactly.
Ooh, that's good. That's real good. Listen, I'm so glad that you were able to get on with me today and to look, we hit on a lot of different stuff, y'all.
We hit on a lot of stuff.
Listen, I'm like, ooh, I thought it was only going to be 2 questions, but we sort of kind of segue into some other stuff. But it's good because, again, it's helping wives and waiting literally add to their repertoire of things that the Lord has said, okay, yeah, you do need to have a little more grace. Okay, listen, this is what grace looked like. They just told you how to cover your waiting. And so now like, okay, there are some places that I can't uncover him in this way. I have to go to the Lord and cover him in prayer and cover me in prayer, because there may have been something that I may have done that he was like, hey, I don't like when you do this, but that's what you did. And then that's how the whole argument started. And so I'm glad we were able to hit on all those things. Do you have any last words before we end today?
No, I guess just really, what's standing out, just really making sure that we are not operating out of anger or out of because when we operate immediately out of our emotions immediately, then we may say things we don't want to, that we'll regret, or we'll do things or talk to people we're not supposed to talk to, whatever. But just really just breathing and just venting to God. I'd say encourage you to vent to God, take it to God, and then allow him to give you that insight. He'll show you a different perspective. Like, they didn't really mean it that way, or it's really not that big of a deal. Or, he'll begin to show you, he'll show you yourself, if that makes sense. He'll show you like, okay, you're really upset with this because of this, and so I'd say really just go to God first, vent to God. He'll give you insight. He'll tell you what to do. And then you'll be able to have those he'll give you the right words to say when if you're taking it back to your spouse. Say, hey, this really hurt me when you did this. Like, you can't go to them when you upset, like, when you did this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're gonna, you know, God will calm you down and he'll give you that insight and say, hey, just really tell him how you feel. And say, hey, you know, you did this, then that made me feel this way. Or, you know, I'm sorry I acted this way because I really just had a hard day today. You know, so just really emphasizing and just really going to God in prayer when you're having a rough time.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. Go to God in prayer and then apologize where apologies need to be given and give grace where grace needs to be given. Yeah. Woo. Listen, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like we need to do like a monthly something. I don't know, but we're gonna pray about it.
Hey, welcome.
I love having a conversation with you, and I love your insight. And the insight that God gives you, it really does help a lot of people. I've had a lot of people tell me that they really enjoyed you being on. So, like I said, thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule, because I know you be busy, and just sitting and chatting with me. So until next time, you guys, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Thank you for joining us this week. Join us again next week so we can continue to grow as wives and wives in waiting.